After the release of the first live-action Transformers movie in summer 2007 catapulted the brand to new levels of success, Hasbro sought to capitalize on it by moving in a new, entertainment-focused direction, beginning with the creation of their own television channel and a prestigious new high-budget Transformers cartoon to air on it. Sponsored by Patreon supporter Dom Verzi, these are the basics on Transformers Prime. In the wake of the live-action film's success, at the beginning of 2008, Hasbro's chief operating officer and one of the movie's executive producers, Brian Goldner, was promoted to CEO and set out a plan to transition Hasbro from being a toy company to an entertainment company, of which toys would be just a part. To that end, in early 2009, Hasbro founded their own television production company, Hasbro Studios, and partnered with Discovery Communications to launch their own TV channel, named The Hub. A new creative division was established within Hasbro named HasLab, whose job it would be to develop Hasbro properties for adaptation into other media. Headed by Vice President Aaron Archer and creative manager Rick Alvarez, the team began concepting ideas for a new Transformers cartoon for the Hub, taking the movie as their main source of inspiration. But the cartoon was just one part of the HasLab team's ambitious vision for the brand. They assembled a huge reference binder that laid out a unified, modern vision for the franchise's lore and characters, a singular, aligned continuity that most Transformers media of the next decade would be set in. The backstory of this new universe would be explored in the video game War for Cybertron and its sequels and spin-offs, while the cartoon would continue the story on present-day Earth. And so it wound up being titled Transformers Prime, after HasLab's desire to create a singular Prime continuity. In the summer of 2009, Hasbro approached the writers of the live-action film, Alex Kurtzman and Roberto Orsi, to develop the series for TV. They brought in animation veteran Jeff Kline, who in turn brought in writer Dwayne Capizzi, and together the four crafted a production bible for the show. Heavily inspired by the movie, with a more dramatic and serious approach than most Transformers cartoons, their story starred a small team of Autobots living in secrecy on Earth and working with the US military. Optimus Prime, Mute Scout Bumblebee, grumpy old medic Ratchet, skilled warrior RC, and lovable bruiser Bulkhead. They were badly outnumbered by the Decepticons, Megatron, Starscream, Soundwave, and a legion of Viacon troopers. A sixth Autobot, Cliffjumper, featured prominently in the series' publicity material, but was always planned to die in the first episode. A shock move to let audiences know that this show was going to have real stakes. The series was co-produced by Hasbro Studios, Orsi and Kurtzman's KO Paper Products, and Kline's Darby Pop Productions. Kline took the lead assembling the talent for the series, recruiting many people he'd worked with in the past, including animation producer Therese Trujillo, supervising director David Hartman, character designer Jose Lopez, and writers Marcia Griffin and Steve Melching, who served as story editors under head writer Capizzi. The series featured CG animation from Japanese studio Polygon Pictures, which emphasized a cinematic film-like feel, complemented by an epic score from composer Brian Tyler. While its cast mixed established voice talent like classic Optimus Prime and Megatron actors Peter Cullen and Frank Welker, returning to the roles for the first time in a TV series together since the original 80s cartoon, with celebrity performers like Ghostbusters star Ernie Hudson as the Autobots' government liaison Agent Fowler, and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in a one-episode guest role as the doomed Cliffjumper. Under normal circumstances, production of a series like Prime would usually take about 2 years, but the clock was already ticking, and the crew had only 10 months to get the show ready to air. Following the release of War for Cybertron in summer 2010, and a prequel graphic novel from IDW Publishing in October, which told the story of how RC and Cliffjumper came to Earth, Transformers Prime debuted on the Hub in November with the week-long 5-part miniseries Darkness Rising. It told the story of 3 humans, responsible Jack Darby, rambunctious Miko Nakadai, and timid computer expert Raph Esquivel, as they befriended the Autobots and helped them foil the resurgent Decepticons' plot to use Dark Energon to raise an army of zombies. The miniseries set the stage for the rest of the season, which began regular broadcast 2 months later in February 2011. The season was largely episodic, but built around a loose story arc that involved Starscream attempting to usurp leadership of the Decepticons when Megatron was temporarily rendered comatose, before ultimately cutting ties with the faction and striking out on his own. Gruff Autobot swordsman Wheeljack made a 1-episode guest appearance, while the Decepticon cast was expanded with the addition of vain, campy medic Knockout, his assistant, Bulkhead's rival Breakdown, and RC's mortal enemy, the sadistic Arachnid. The Autobots would also face a human threat in terrorist organisation Mech, who sought Cybertronian technology to usher in a new world order. The season concluded in October after 26 episodes with the 3-part One Shall Rise, in which the Transformers discovered that their ancient enemy, the Dark God, Unicron, lay slumbering within the Earth, forcing the Autobots to ally with Megatron to prevent his awakening and the destruction of the planet. As a result of the short lead time on the cartoon, Prime toys, based on the artwork of Jose Lopez and his team, weren't ready to roll out until after the first season was over. A preview line of sorts, named First Edition, launched in late 2011, but it had a spotty release and was very hard to find. The true, full Prime toy line debuted just a few months later, at the start of 2012, made up of 2 major ranges with their own unique play patterns. The Robots in Disguise range, featuring standard deluxe figures and larger Voyager figures with transforming light-up weapons. And the Cyberverse range, simple, small-scale figures with interchangeable weaponry, vehicles, and playsets. Hot on the heels of the toys, the second season of the cartoon began in February 2012, centered on the Transformers' race to recover ancient Cybertronian relics and weapons scattered across Earth. Running for 26 more episodes until November, this season continued Starscream and Mech's subplots, and added Wheeljack, brash young Autobot Smokescreen, and honourable Decepticon Dreadwing to the regular cast. At the outset of the series, the writing team had formulated ideas for what they thought would be 3 years' worth of stories, but the increasingly epic scope of the show meant that they'd worked through all of them by the end of this season. This year saw the Prime franchise significantly expand, with heaps of ancillary media and merchandise around the world. There were video games, including one for Nintendo Wii and DS systems, comics, including one from IDW focusing on the Dinobots that more closely connected the cartoon to the War for Cybertron game series, and even a sister series on the Hub, Rescue Bots, a younger audience's Transformers cartoon set in continuity with Prime, which Jeff Klein also co-developed. Additionally, 2012 saw Hasbro's Japanese partner, Takara Tomy, launch the series in their markets, with some significant changes. Their versions of the toys came with snap-together model kits of the ARMS Microns, small robots that transformed into weapons for the larger figures. And the Japanese broadcast of the cartoon was supplemented with new comedic animated shorts starring these little bots. But as the show was growing, behind the scenes, its production wasn't always easy. Besides the short lead time, Klein and his staff were eager to get out from under Hasbro's binder of aligned lore, and do more of their own thing, which left HasLab struggling to keep consistency between the different parts of the continuity. Plus, while we still don't really know the full story, as none of the show's staff have ever talked about it, it's apparent that the show's budget, which at one point was as high as $1.6 million an episode, was cut back during season 2. Several actors were abruptly dropped from the show, leading to the sudden removal of characters like Breakdown and Arachnid. And 2 clip shows were produced to inexpensively pad out the season. Due to a combination of these financial concerns and lower than expected viewing figures for the hub itself, the decision was made to conclude Prime with its 3rd season. But of course, production of this season wouldn't be without its own difficulties. The toy line for this year was suddenly taken in a new direction by newly appointed design director Joshua Lamb, introducing a 3rd faction of prehistoric Cybertronian dragons called the Predacons, and redesigning the Autobots and Decepticons with new armor and weaponry to contend with these new enemies, hence the line's new subtitle, Beast Hunters. Planning for the 3rd season of the cartoon was already underway when this new direction was handed down, forcing the cartoon staff to seriously rework their story to incorporate as many of the toy line's new ideas as possible. Debuting in March 2013, the season saw the Decepticons joined by emotionless mad scientist Shockwave and his genetically engineered Predacon, Predaking, while an upgraded Optimus Prime and newly arrived stern second-in-command Ultra Magnus led the Autobots in an effort to prevent the villains from acquiring the Predacon fossils that would allow them to clone more of the monsters. It ran for 13 episodes until July, then wrapped up in August with the TV movie Predacons Rising. Accompanied by its own dedicated subline of toys, the movie concluded the series with Unicron possessing Megatron's body and attacking Cybertron with a horde of zombie Predacons, and Optimus Prime sacrificing himself to restore life to the Transformers' homeworld. Notably, Takara Tomy chose not to import this final season. Prime hadn't been a big success in Japan, so they took the Beast Hunters premise in a different direction, releasing the toys as part of a new series titled Transformers Go. This line was supported by a new cartoon released via promotional DVDs given away with magazines, which served as an alternate continuation of Prime after Season 2, and saw teams of new Japanese original Autobots battling the Predacons over the power of the time-twisting Legend discs. Now, by this point, HasLab had been working on ideas for what would follow Beast Hunters for a while. Rick Alvarez has said that the next animated project was meant to feature the space pirates, the Star Seekers, and there were also plans for a crossover event titled Unit E that would bring the Transformers together with other Hasbro properties like G.I. Joe and Mask, seeds for which had been sprinkled into Prime's 3rd season. But unfortunately, a round of layoffs within Hasbro, speculated by Alvarez to be connected to the financial failure of their 2012 movie, Battleship, resulted in HasLab being shut down, meaning that these future plans would go unrealized. Instead, Prime wound up being followed by the standalone sequel series, Robots in Disguise, which ran from 2015 to 2017 on Cartoon Network. A more light-hearted show about a team of Autobots led by Bumblebee rounding up escaped Decepticon criminals on Earth. Key members of the Prime staff continued to work on this series, and it featured guest appearances by various returning Prime characters, including the resurrected Optimus, Ratchet, Bulkhead, Soundwave, and Starscream, with even more showing up in tie-in comics. Transformers Prime was an extremely well-received show with a far-reaching legacy. Its mix of cinematic action and serious-minded storytelling won it multiple Daytime Emmy Awards every year it was on the air, and brought in a new generation of fans who remain passionate about the show today, ensuring it's still regarded as one of the best and most popular Transformers cartoons. Notable staff members on the show who would make further major contributions to Transformers include Season 1 staff writer Nicole Dubuque, who co-created both Rescue Bots and 2022's Transformers Earthspark, and writer's assistant Margaret Scott, who became the first female Transformers comic book author. New toys of many characters from the series have been released over the years, with several making return appearances in new Transformers media. Arachnid is even set to appear on the big screen in the 2024 movie Transformers 1. But top of the heap is Knockout, who's emerged as the show's big breakout fan favourite bot, who was even voted into the Transformers Hall of Fame for the show's 10th anniversary in 2020. And of course, the show was the central pillar of the Aligned continuity. And while that project didn't pan out exactly how HasLab had hoped, the unified lore that it introduced has continued to form the backbone of virtually all Transformers media released since. Meaning that Transformers Prime has definitely lived up to its name. And those are the basics on Transformers Prime. Thanks to Dom for sponsoring this episode about their favourite Transformers cartoon. Share your thoughts and memories of Prime in the comments. And as ever, be sure to subscribe, and if you can, support the show on Patreon for more history and lore from the world of the Transformers.